Hello and welcome. Thank you very much for joining me today. My name is Steve and I'm a solutions consultant here at Adobe, specializing in Adobe Sign, Adobe's electronic signature solution. Adobe has a relentless focus on the customer. Customer experience permeates everything we do here. During today's session, I'm going to go through what it is, what it looks like, why it's important, and how to create it. I'm going to show you how Adobe Document Cloud Solutions can strengthen your customer experience and use it to give you a business advantage. We're going to build a digital enrollment form from scratch in Adobe Acrobat Pro DC and show you all the capabilities that Adobe Sign has to smooth out the form filling process. You're here on today's webinar as I'm sure you want to transform your customer interactions. During this session, I will explain how becoming an experience business with Adobe Sign provides you with the following opportunities. Use digital forms and electronic signatures to lower abandonment and build forms right into your web experience. Increase speed and efficiency. Create, update, and process forms easily without having to involve IT. Create forms that adjust to any screen. If customers start an onboarding process on a laptop and finish up on a tablet, it's no problem. And finally, use personalization to add an individual touch to build a rapport with your customer. If you are interested in improving your business across any of these areas, stick around, because over the course of today's session, I'm going to show you how you can take steps to transform the digital enrollment process and put customer experience at the heart of your business. So, in order to get us started today, I'd like to run through why you should care about customer experience. Today's ultra-connected consumers are interacting with brands more often and in more places than ever. In fact, the average customer comes into contact with a brand at least 5 times before buying, whether it's an online search or an in-store visit or an app download. Customer expectations are high, they have infinite choice, and the cost of switching products and services has never been more affordable. It only takes one bad experience, and I'm sure you remember your last, to make that move. Now, more than ever, customers from travel to automotive, finance to tech crave personalization. They request customized systems, appreciate a well-designed user experience, and expect companies to be accessible, communicative, and understanding, in their native languages no less. Failing in any one of these areas risks exposing the customer to a fragmented and inconsistent encounter with your brand. Good customer experience could even save your business money too. Poor forms could increase the use of costly over-the-phone or in-person channels. And you'll also miss out on analytics, which hurts your ability to improve or personalize your customer interactions. That's why companies perfecting engagement with their customers are thriving in this digital economy and growing the fastest. So, what are some of the customer-facing processes that could benefit from becoming digital, or even better, automated entirely using Adobe Sign? If you work in sales, Adobe Sign can take care of contracts and agreements, proposals and quotes. In human resources, you can look to digitize employee onboarding, benefit enrollment, and employee policies. If you work in marketing, use electronic signatures for release forms or new customer enrollment. In fact, here at Adobe, we work extensively with use cases from many different industries, spanning banking, automotive, property, pharmaceutical, retail, and more. Take banking as an example. Can you think back to when you last ordered a financial product? It may have been a loan, a credit card, or a mortgage. Were you impressed with the experience that you received? When a credit card application or car loan is slow and clunky, unhappy customers can just drop out of the sign-up process and choose a competitor with a single click. Enrollment experiences should be simple. You'll set yours apart if you remove the slightest hint of friction. Banking customers should be able to sign forms and applications electronically. Banks should be able to validate government-issued IDs without making customers drive into a branch. All of this is made possible with Adobe Sign. The enrolment process shouldn't be an afterthought, especially because it's often the first experience customers have with you. Now more than ever, companies need to put their best digital foot forward by making forms and applications a fully digital, uninterrupted process that doesn't just deliver the kind of experience customers expect, it gives your company a competitive advantage. Just before we move into the demo, I want to give you an introduction to Adobe Sign. Adobe Sign is the trusted electronic signature leader. We have been the leader in digital documentation for over 20 years, and Adobe created the PDF standard. We process in excess of 7 billion signature transactions per year, and Adobe Sign serves over 77 million users in countries around the world. So where does Adobe Sign fit into Adobe's suite of solutions? Adobe solutions fall into 3 clouds: Creative Cloud, Experience Cloud, and Document Cloud. Adobe Creative Cloud brings together the world's best creative apps like Photoshop, Premiere Pro, and XD, services, assets, and learning content so people can create their best work anywhere. Adobe Experience Cloud helps enterprises build campaigns, manage advertising, and gain deep intelligence about business performance. Adobe Document Cloud provides everything people need to create digital document workflows quickly, securely, and in the systems that they are using every day. Adobe Document Cloud includes Acrobat DC, Adobe Sign, which is what we'll be largely speaking about today, and powerful mobile apps, all backed by rock-solid security. Introducing Automotive, a fictional vehicle retailer that uses Adobe Experience Cloud solutions to gain a deep insight and build a detailed picture of their customer. They take the data they already know about their customer and use it to personalize the 5-step process to purchasing a vehicle. So when a customer enters a showroom, the vehicle they've already configured at home on the Automotive mobile app is waiting for them. The assistant can greet them with a tablet or an interactive kiosk. The final step of the process is to confirm the details and sign the agreement. This means there's no data to re-enter, no frustration around being asked the same details a customer has already entered in the app at home. Everything is already at the assistant's fingertips. It means nothing stands in the way of delivering the unique vehicle customization experience only Automotive can offer. Now, of course, this demonstration is not representative of the full steps involved in purchasing a vehicle. It is designed to show you what's possible with the steps shortened using Adobe Sign to sign a vehicle order form. To set the scene for today's demo, I am on the website adobeautomotive.com. Now, you're actually free to visit this website yourself, and you can see how Adobe Sign could potentially fit into your business website. This is a very simple 5-step configurator where the use case is that Automotive are using Adobe Experience Cloud products. They've already built up a complex picture of their customer using all the details that they've provided. The customer can walk into a showroom and they can be greeted by either a tablet or maybe an electronic kiosk where the vehicle that they've already configured at home will be waiting for them inside the showroom. And they can simply go ahead and sign their sales order right there and then. So if you click on Continue Configuration, you can see I've already been remembered. My details are here, and I can verify that they're all okay. And next, I'm being asked to choose some wheels. I think I'm going to go for the multi-spoke on my vehicle here. Next, we choose the interior, and I think I'm going to go for the leather as well. So with both of those options set, we now have the Finalize and Sign button. What's happening now when I click that, an Adobe Sign transaction will be created for us on the fly, and we will be presented with a sales order form next. Pressing on that, sure enough, the order form appears. And if we open this up, you can see a lot of details have been merged onto this agreement about my particular order. Scrolling down, my details are in place, and I'm being asked to enter in an email address. Next question is whether I would like to have the vehicle delivered to the same address as above. So what we can do in Adobe Sign forms is we can have sections of a form showing and hiding based on some logic that's happened further on in a document. So for example, if I uncheck this checkbox, a new section appears saying, if no, please can you specify an alternative address? And decide maybe if I wanted to change my mind at a later date, check that here and that section will disappear for me. And you also saw that we did have some tooltips popping up as well. That is a nice capability that we can add in when we are tagging our form, and I'll show you that a little bit later. Scrolling down, our options that we elected for have been chosen for us here in the form of radio buttons. However, if I did change my mind, the accessories total is a dynamic field, and we're using calculated fields here to change the total. It's updating in real time as I make my selections. And if you scroll down on the right-hand side, we've got the grand total as well as a percentage deposit automatically being calculated, again, as I'm electing these choices. Now we just have left to sign our agreement, and all the signing can take place inside of this HTML iframe that we have on adobeautomotive.com. So the purpose of today's demo, what we're going to do is go through and show how I was able to tag up this document. What we do is we can make it so that the form filling process inside of Adobe Sign can be as streamlined as possible to create the best possible customer experience for your organization. So this document in particular started life as an Adobe Photoshop PSD file, which I have on screen here. Just simply left spaces where we need to add in the fields. So what I've done is I've exported this as a Photoshop PDF and opened it up using Acrobat Pro. So I've got the version I created earlier here opened up in Acrobat Pro. And these are form fields that I've added in. And I'm going to go through and break down exactly what I've done with the calculated fields, and what we've done with the showing and the hiding of the conditional logic that we've got going on using the checkbox for the delivery address, and show you how we did the deposit calculation that was done using calculated fields, as well as the total for the accessories as well, all being calculated in real time. Finally, we're going to add some signature boxes to the bottom of our agreement. So to get started, here is the blank version of that PDF. What we need to do in Acrobat is put Acrobat into prepare form mode. If you've not worked with Acrobat before, hit the pink option and you get a bar along the top which gives you a lot of different options that you can add to your form. So we're going to start by adding in the price field, and this is a straightforward text field. Let's drag and drop that into place. With Acrobat, we've got nice resize handles where we can choose the exact positioning of our boxes. Double-clicking on a text box is going to give you the properties for that. So if we go to the General tab, we need to give it a name. So I'm simply going to call this price. What I like to do as well is to keep all of my form fields, in a lowercase letter. Because if we start to work with formulas a little bit later on, it can get a bit confusing as they are case sensitive. So what we're going to do is we would rather not have our customer modify the price that's payable. That could be a bit disastrous for us. So what we're going to do is make sure we check the box that says it is read only. That will mean that during Adobe Sign's signing transaction, this will come up as just a piece of text that is not modifiable in any way. Next, we go to the Appearance tab, and we need to choose the font size. And let's go for size 26 on this, I think. So next, we need to make sure that we add in a default value. So what will happen is, I think in practice, you would use Adobe Sign's API to merge in the price. I'm not going to show you that, it's beyond the scope of today's demo, but what we'll do is we'll merge in a number, and let's put in 14,995. And this will simulate what your website would do. When that's being generated, Adobe Sign can pass in a dynamic value in here. But for today, let's keep it at 14,995. Pressing OK, that's now been added in for us. Next, we're going to go on to the model. So I'm going to add another text field into place. Drag and drop it in there. Make sure we resize it down to the correct size. Let's call this the model field. And its default value, we're going to merge in or simulate the merging in of the model called the eSig. Let's call it that. So in order to duplicate a field reasonably quickly in Adobe Acrobat, I am using a Mac here. What I can do is I can hold the Option key. And it's the same if you're using a Windows PC. It's the Alt key. And you can drag and have a form field duplicated. So that's been copied for me nicely. Let's resize it. And we're going to call it the engine field. And the default value is going to be, let's call it our 1 litre turbo engine. So the performance field is next. Let's drag and drop our performance. And this will be 115 PS. So the colour that the customer has opted for, we're going to simulate the merging in of a colour, we're going to call it cloud red. This time, because the colour swatch is on the right-hand side, it's probably best to right align our text box. So we choose that. Next we go for the transmission, again dragging and dropping, holding down the Alt key to duplicate that. And for the transmission, let's go for a 7-speed automatic. The efficiency, this will be merged in at 60 miles per gallon. Finally, the emissions, we're going to set to 110 grams per kilometre. Okay, everything's looking good here. Now let's make sure we save changes on this so we don't lose it. So all of these need to be set to read only. This will simulate the fact that we're going to be having this merged in from perhaps a database or anything else that we've got on record for our customer's order here. So with these all selected, I'm going to set these to read only. Okay, so now we need to go into the data capture section. So what we're going to do is going to add in some text boxes. I'm going to call this the title field. Now we get the option here to make sure that it is a required field. What will happen in Adobe Sign is that when we go through to sign this agreement, there will be a red asterisk on this, and it will make sure that your signer has to enter in some data in here. What is a good idea to do in Acrobat is make sure we add a tooltip. So I'm going to make sure we put in here, please add your title. And again, this is going to guide our signer to make sure they understand what goes into this option here. There's absolutely no reason why we couldn't make this a drop-down either. If we had a preset list of titles, you could perhaps put in Mr., Mrs., Miss, etc. So next up, we have our first name field. Adobe Sign fields do not really play nicely with spaces. If we did want to have spaces, I would suggest replacing these with underscores. Again, keeping it consistent. So I go all lowercases and I go all underscores instead of spaces. And again, this is a required field, so they will not be allowed to submit this until they have added that in. Adding in the surname now, updating the tooltip. Looking good. So you can see with our required fields, they are coming up in red. Title, first name and surname, it's all been selected. Let's duplicate these quickly, holding down the Alt key and dragging. Now, address 3, I'd like to not be required. So I'm going to leave this as a not required field. Moving on, let's grab the top row again, holding down Alt and dragging them in order to duplicate. Our town is required, county, and our postcode has been added as well now. Now, what we can do using Adobe Sign is we can actually do pattern matching on a postcode field. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump now to the Adobe Sign text tag guide. This is a useful piece of documentation that Adobe Sign has on adding these form fields here. if I scroll down here, what we can do is we can add in the tag for a postcode or a zip code in the UK country format. What that will actually do is it will verify that it matches the same pattern as a UK zip code, or what we call a postcode here in the United Kingdom. So if I grab that from our documentation, we jump back to Acrobat. We need to do a little bit more on the name here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add _ES_ to the end of the name. That has to be added in order to tell Adobe Sign that there is something else to look for. And that something else is after a colon. The second section is where we define who will be signing here. This is going to be filled out by signer 1, which will be our customer. And after that is where we put what I've copied onto the clipboard. That is the text tag for a zip code in the UK country format. Finally, let's grab the last line here. The phone number can also be done as an Adobe Sign form field for a phone number. Please add your phone number. And this is :phone, and that will verify to make sure that that is a phone number. We do have support for a country UK to make sure that it contains the correct number of digits. And finally, our email address now. And because we're sending this using Adobe Sign, we specify the recipient's email address from the outset. So Adobe Sign is going to know what that person's email address is because we've sent it to them. So that can be added in automatically on here. So let's put in email _ES_ :signer1 :email. And this will be the email address for signer number 1 in our process. Okay, so our data capture section is complete. We've got tooltips popping up, which is great. It's going to guide our signers through to signing. We're making use of required fields, we can see in red here, and non-required fields in black. And we're also making use of the data capture that we have built into Adobe Sign. We've got zip codes and phone numbers and email addresses all being detected. So next we want to have the delivery address section done. So we want to ask the question, is it the same as what you've entered above? So we need a checkbox. Let's open up the checkbox properties by double-clicking it. And we're asking the question, is it the same as above? So our checkbox is going to let's call it del for delivery, _same. We don't need a tooltip for a checkbox. And we do not need to have it required as well. So we don't have to have it checked. Everything looked good here. Now, what we're going to do, after resizing this a little bit, make it look a bit nicer, what I need to do is actually grab a free text box so we can add multiple lines of text entry. So let's have this text box made a little bit larger using the resize handles. Double click it to get the options. Now let's jump onto the options tab. Now this is a multi-line checkbox, or text box, excuse me, meaning that if I start typing some text, pressing enter on the keyboard will actually add a carriage return and we can continue to write on multiple lines. Okay, jumping back to the general tab, this is where we're going to need to enter in a little bit of a formula. What's going to happen here is we want this text box to appear, but only when we check the box that's called del _same. So the formula for this is give this text box a name, this text box. Let's call it del _address _ES_ :signer1. Now what we want to do is put :show if. And :show if, as the name suggests, will only show this text box if the following condition is true. So del _same is the name of the checkbox. We want to check to see whether this checkbox is unchecked. And this box will only appear if the checkbox on the left-hand side has not been selected. And it's a good idea, again, to add in a tooltip. And this is a required field as well. So if we do uncheck this box, we will be forced to enter in this delivery address. So we cannot get away with simply not putting it in. It has to be added. Everything looks good. Let's make sure we save changes. And we also want to make sure that we check to see whether this box is checked by default. Checking this box here will make sure that this is checked by default, and we're unchecking it in order to show the field on the right. So if you remember from the demo that we had earlier, that this section actually completely disappeared, including the label as well. So how do we go about doing that? Well, what we can do in Adobe Sign is we can actually have a white section. We can do that using a text box as well, but it is read only. And we have this acting as some kind of mask over the top of our box. And rather than showing it if the checkbox is unchecked, we're simply going to hide it. And that's going to reveal what is underneath it. And that's how we're able to do different sections in Adobe Sign, showing and hiding. So this must be a read-only text box. This box must be checked because we cannot enter in any text into here. It is simply being used as a mask. I'm going to call it white, because that's what it is. Underscore ES underscore. This time we're doing hide if, colon hide if. And the condition is del underscore same equals unchecked. Pressing close, this is the formula that we need, and it will be automatically hiding and revealing the red text box and the label underneath if we uncheck the delivery address box. Okay, everything is looking good in this section. Now let's move on to our options. So the way we can do these are using radio buttons. And if we've not used radio buttons before, the light checkbox is except it does not allow you to choose anything more than one option. And that's correct in this case. We wouldn't want to be able to choose two different types of wheels. So what I'm going to do is drag in a radio button from the menu at the top. I'll drag and drop this into place. Double click it to get our options. And this one is called Wheels. And if we now look at the option that's going to be carried through, we need to do some formula based on these a little bit later. So we need to make sure we give it a correct choice. So when we choose this, what's going to be passed through is the value 350. And that is the cost of these. Let's now duplicate our first radio button and move it over to the twin spoke section. Twin spoke section has again the same name, and what we do is as long as it has the same name, Adobe Acrobat and Adobe Sign will know that these two radio buttons relate to one another. So they will be part of the same group, and you will only be able to choose one of the two choices. And this one has an option of 460. We must make sure that this is a required field as well, and that is showing in red. Let's do the same for the leather and the Daytona grey cloth. The name for this one I'm going to call material, and the value for that will be 900. Duplicating this very quickly, our cloth is a little bit cheaper here. This one again is still called material, but this one is going to have a value of 150. So all the magic now that's going to use to add up the choices that we've made is done using a text box here in the accessories total section. So I'm going to drag in a text box from the top. I need to give it a name, and we're going to put a formula in here that's going to add up our totals. Double clicking on that brings up the options, and I'm going to give this field a name of ac underscore total underscore es underscore. This time we're going to do a colon calc, and a colon calc is going to be adding together the value of two different or multiple different form fields that appear elsewhere on this document. So what we want to do is we want to add together the value of, using square brackets here, wheels plus material. And this will be a read-only box as well. So we check that. Don't want to be able to modify our total. And we press close. And what that will do, again, as we're saying, will actually automatically add up in real time as we choose one of the four options. So now what we want to do is we want to calculate the deposit that's going to come up in this sentence here. What we're going to do is we're going to take a percentage. We're going to take a 15% percentage of our grand total, which is going to appear here a little bit later. So again, we take another text box, and this time we're going to need to make the font a little bit smaller. So I'm going to grab in a text box and drag it into place. And the font size we've gone for is size 9. Okay, we've got quite a big formula coming up now. We need to take a 0.15 multiplication of the grand total to return the actual amount of the deposit, the 15% deposit that will be paid. So this is going to be called the deposit text box. _es_ colon calc. And the formula that we're going to enter in for the calculation is grand underscore total multiplied, so we've got the asterisk there, multiplied by 0.15. That's going to return a 15% of whatever our grand total is. But what we can also do is we can bolt on another modifier onto the end of this. And we want to return that number back in a certain format. And we'd like to go to 2 decimal places because this is a price. So we can actually bolt on colon format onto the end here. Open and close parentheses. And we want to return that back as a number. So capital N at the beginning, comma, open up a couple of speech marks, and the format is 0.00. And this will instruct Adobe Sign to return this as a number to 2 decimal places. And we need to make sure that this is a read-only field so that it cannot be modified. So now this formula at the moment will return an error simply because the grand total field does not yet exist. So we need to go and add that in. So let's drag and drop a text box into place, resize it so that it looks nice and neat. Double click on it, and again we have quite a large formula incoming. So we're going to go grand underscore total underscore es underscore colon calc. And this is going to be a calculation of the price in square brackets plus the accessories total. Outside of the parentheses, again, we're going to format this using the format of number with a comma to 2 decimal places. We need to make sure we add in a pound sign here. Just what that will do is Adobe Sign will actually see that as a format and it will bolt on a pound sterling sign for me. Now that was different to what we did here. The pound sign was actually added on in the underlying document. In this case, we're not doing that. This is a free text box. So adding the pound sign here will format the number using the pound sign at the beginning. So let's close out of that. Also need to double check, make sure that's a read-only field as well. We wouldn't want customers being able to modify their grand total. And the deposit as well needs to be replicated. And what I'll do is I shall just duplicate this box here. Call this the deposit 2. Can't have the same name as deposit 1, otherwise that will clash. Our deposit name has already been used here. Deposit 2 is a calculated field. And what it will do is it will actually just, rather than calculate something, it will just echo out what is already in deposit 1, formatted as a number to 2 decimal places with the pound sign added in like that. Okay, again, this is a read-only field. Everything is looking well here. So now, all we have left to do is to add in our signature boxes. So in Adobe Sign, when we do Acrobat form fields, we can do them as straightforward text boxes. And the way that Adobe Sign can differentiate these from standard text boxes is to add the colon signature delimiter on the end. So let's call this box simply sig1 underscore es underscore, assign it to signer number 1, and sticking colon signature on the end will tell Adobe Sign that this is a signature box. We need that person to enter in their name, so I shall duplicate this, resize it a little bit. I'm going to call this name 1, sticking colon full name on the end here. We'll take what Adobe Sign's knowledge of that person's full name is. And if they've not signed a document, if they've never heard of Adobe Sign and it's the first time, they'll be asked to enter their name when they sign, and that will automatically be pulled through here. And again, on any future agreements they sign with Adobe Sign, so they don't have to type that every time. And finally, today's date is added in here. So let's double click this duplicated field. Let's call it date1 underscore es underscore colon date. We'll add in the date of when this agreement has been signed. Now by default in Adobe Sign we use American date formats. So what we can actually do is format this to go into a UK date format. So again, colon date on the end, open up parentheses, add in the word date, and then a comma. And then what we need to do is put in the format of DD, MM, YY inside of speech marks. And this is a required field as well. But I believe everything is ready now for testing. Let's save this now, and we're ready to run it through Adobe Sign for some testing. So let's jump into my browser. I have Adobe Sign ready and waiting. Let's send it out to a fictional person. Let's pretend that Jane Taylor here is ready to sign for her vehicle. Let's quickly add that file now. And we have that PDF now added to this transaction. And let's call it the automotive vehicle purchase form. I think in practice, you probably wouldn't email it out to someone. We described earlier a scenario where you would come into a branch or a showroom, and this would all be done perhaps on an interactive kiosk or an iPad. But we'll do this for testing now and see if it comes back with any errors. Everything looks good. Let's preview now, because what Adobe Sign will do is it will actually check each of my formulas to make sure that there are no mistakes in them. Fingers crossed we've got this right first time. Give that a second now. And there are no errors on our document. Fingers crossed, everything is looking good. Usually you would get a pop-up here to tell you perhaps if some of your formulas were relating to fields that didn't exist. And it would be at that point you would check perhaps, have you used a capital letter where there shouldn't be? Are there any form fields that you're referencing that don't exist, or perhaps there's been a typo in there? But fingers crossed, if we now send this out to Jane, I think we're going to have no issues at all. Okay, so press the blue button and this immediately goes out for signature. Let's jump over and see what Jane sees in her inbox. And she now has her automotive vehicle purchase form in order to sign. Let's open this up and have a look at all the capabilities that we put into our form. Jane has 13 required fields, and we're getting nice tooltips popping up as she is typing. And the read-only fields that have simulated merging in from your system have come in nicely here. Perhaps we could fix the spacing a little bit on our miles per gallon. But I think you'll agree we've done a pretty good job here. This looks like a genuine form. So let's very quickly fill this out. Now, if you notice there, what was happening as I was typing is we are actually getting an error that is telling me that this is not a valid UK postcode. If you remember, we put the validation on here. This is going to allow only the correct format for a UK postcode, which is great. Country, United Kingdom, and our phone number is being entered in. However, once again, if I try to type in text into this box here, it is going to reject it for me. That is now a valid phone number and we're allowed to move on. Our delivery address, looking good. We can enter that in here, an alternative address. And again, we are showing and hiding if we check the box, looking good. And finally, we have our options. And as I'm checking these, great, they are updating in real time. The deposit is being calculated. That's a 15% deposit of our grand total of £16,355. And all that is left to do is to sign our agreement in the normal way and press apply. And you can see our agreement has now been signed. To wrap up, I'd like to close by answering the question, why do our customers love Adobe Sign? Adobe is a trusted company with billions of signatures transacted from over 140 countries worldwide. We have over 20 years' experience developing secure digital document solutions. We show great standards leadership. Of course, we were the inventor of PDF and digital signatures in PDF. However, our newest development, the Cloud Signature Consortium, is building a standard that will bring the most secure form of electronic signatures to mobile devices around the world. Our interface is 30% faster than the competition, providing a better signing experience. Adobe Sign provides unsurpassed enterprise branding and customization, allowing you to personalize the experience, promoting your brand. Adobe has a history of stable management and leadership, and we're one of the most trusted SaaS providers in the world, processing more than 7 billion signature transactions a year. And if you think that number is impressive, Adobe's Marketing Cloud platform as a whole processed 40 trillion transactions. Adobe is no stranger to high volumes of data and traffic. And now I'd like to hand back to our presenter to see if we have any questions at all.